A week or so ago, I had a gardener call me, and she was a little bit discouraged. Her main garden had not done as well as she had hoped, and we talked about the different things that probably went on, and somewhat of a novice gardener. And I tried to encourage her. I said, well, there's next year, but then there's still this year. If you haven't ever grown a fall garden, I want to encourage you to try growing some fall garden. Greens work very well. This shot shows actually a gentleman who's planted some in a container, and the different salad plants do very well in a container. So if you're not thinking, oh, I don't want to get out there and work up my garden, try a container, put it on your deck or somewhere sunny location. Here's a list of some things that we can get planted now and you can use in a salad. Some things to think about though, if you are putting them out in the garden, we generally think about planting just a little bit deeper where the soil may be a little cooler. These plants all like a little bit of cooler soil to germinate. So plant them a little bit deeper. Keep the soil moist. You may be watering fairly frequently to keep it moist, and keep it moist until they emerge. If you're like some gardeners and your garden soil is a little on the heavy side, you could plant the seed and sprinkle it with some peat moss or vermiculite or compost right over the row. That helps keep the soil from crusting and allows those little seeds to be able to come on through. Give some of these crops a try. We have our vegetable planting calendar, which lists on the different crops. If you haven't ever grown vegetables in the fall, I'd encourage you to do that. Then, since we're getting on into August, I wanted to add some of the other things we can look at for fall. As I mentioned, our main garden is kind of waning, kind of going out, but now is a time to be thinking about some of these things that really flourish as we get into the cooler nights, the little shorter days. Your lettuce and carrots, the taste is just really outstanding. Green beans, I've had wonderful green beans in the fall. The radishes are almost kind of sweet. If you're looking at the cole crops, the broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, those things, you might be able to get some by seed. But really, if you can find a garden center that has plants, I'd encourage you to get some plants and just try a few. The other thing to remember on the fall garden is, even though these are cooler season plants for the most part, a lot of times that first part of October, we can see a little bit of frost. Probably more so maybe up here in northern Missouri. It may be a little later, further south we go, but you want to be prepared when they're predicting some frost and cover those plants. A lot of times we'll get a little bit of frost that might damage the plants, but if you can protect them, floating row cover or maybe an old sheet or blanket, something to keep that heat in over the plants overnight and into the morning, that will preserve them. And a lot of times will go on up until Thanksgiving. And these plants will just really love that kind of weather to grow in. And I just try to encourage you all to look at growing a fall garden if you haven't planted one. And when you're looking at the bush beans, the squash, you want to look for varieties that are pretty short season, so they have a chance to get in and mature before we do get the colder weather. Gardening's not over. Again, I just want to encourage you to give it a try if you haven't grown any fall vegetables.